to the Rehab My Soul podcast. Today we are having a great conversation with Miss Jill Wright, and she's going to tell us about how her life changed after understanding certain things about her family dynamic. And we're just going to kind of hang out and just chit chat. The show is all about recovering and rebuilding and being okay on a soul level. So, Jill, welcome to the show. Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here to chat with you.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you. So, I want to let the audience get to know you a bit better. I've heard your story already. You've graced me, but I want to give you the mic and allow you to just kind of introduce yourself and let us know what's going on.
Yeah, great. Well, my name is Jill. I'm a mom of two. I have an almost 5-year-old son, and he was recently, within the past couple of years, diagnosed with autism. And then I also have a daughter who is turning 3. So it's a busy household. I've recently separated from my husband. And so we're in the transition phase of selling the house and finding new houses and sort of managing that sort of uncoupling, if you will. And then on top of all of that, I'm a business owner and I'm an alignment coach for moms. So what that really means is that I help other moms who have typically they're in the throes of like really young kids, babies and toddlers, and they've find that they kind of lost connection with themselves, and you can really easily feel super overwhelmed in that phase of your life. And so I went down a huge rabbit hole of a lot of time, money, and energy spent trying to figure out ways that actually work for moms to be able to sort of overcome that and realign with themselves. So that's the work that I do professionally.
Awesome. So tell me about how you were Jill, and then when you became Jill, that became the mother, and then Jill, the mother, after the diagnosis, and how that changed your dynamic.
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. And I've never really put it together like that. So I'll be thinking as I'm as like out loud with you here. But so it was really interesting because Jill was never wanting to be a mother for years and years and years, to the devastation of my parents. I didn't want kids. And then when I met my husband, it sort of felt like, okay, well, this is a person that I could have a family with. And then it really quickly for me changed into a focus on having a family. Um, and it's funny because we struggled a lot to conceive with our first. And so it went from very much independent, youthful, career focused, not wanting kids, to all of a sudden finding the right person, imagining that family, wanting that dynamic, and then struggling to get there. And so when we finally did conceive our son, I didn't know what was coming. Nobody ever really knows. You can never be prepared. And so that first year of motherhood was really just a learning curve. I find right now that there's so much information out there, and for people like me who just want to do it right and want to have all the information and be able to know it all, you can't, and that becomes overwhelming. And so I drowned in a lot of information. And then there was a lot of struggles as well when my son turned 2 and my daughter came into the picture, because not only now do I have 2 babies, one of them is having a lot of behavioral issues because he can't talk yet. And I don't know if it's a terrible twos. I don't know if it's the new sibling that came along. I don't know if it's something else. And then I got postpartum depression after my second, like really bad. So there was a lot going on. Oh, and the pandemic also. So that Jill was crazy.
Oh,
So that was a wild time for me. And then once about a year into having the 2-kid family and dealing with my eldest, and sort of that delay in speech and behavioral issues and things that were a little out of the norm, but you don't know because it's your first kid and every kid is different and you're not supposed to compare and all those things, right? And you just love them as quirky as they are. And then my my family wanted me to see if we could just get a speech assessment done for him because he would be going into kindergarten. And so I did that, and it turned into a full pediatric assessment, and that kind of rolled into an autism diagnosis. And so Jill, after that point, got really focused on research, but on a way that I could understand the diagnosis and the child and the brain, and how really just to navigate life with that new sort of piece of the puzzle in it. It was never something that sort of scared me, or I'm very lucky that none of my family members had any sort of resistance or judgment or disappointment at all. We were all just really able to come together, and I sort of spearheaded an effort to gain some understanding. And so that really pivoted me into a season of learning. And so right now I'm still very much in that season where I just want to learn as much as I can about how to be better and how to grow and how to serve others in a way that will help them. And so that's kind of where my business was born. Really was out of that new curiosity for learning.
Awesome. So, what words of advice do you have for someone who's trying to achieve something but it's not easy? Like we can sometimes question ourselves of whether or not this is in true alignment for us, right?
Oh my gosh,
So,
yes. Yeah. And
what would you say to that?
I think a lot of it comes down to really getting to know yourself again. And so a lot of us will dismiss the small feelings and intuitions that we have in the busyness of life, and that little thing that's kind of nudging you that like, oh, you should do this. You're interested in this, or like, this doesn't feel quite right. In either direction, you can ignore them and get out of alignment with sort of your true self and your true path. And I think the key is realizing that everything is hard. It's going to be hard no matter which direction you take, but it doesn't need to feel like, I'll rephrase that. Everything is going to be work that's worthwhile, but it doesn't need to feel hard. And I think if you can slow down and recognize that feeling of more flow and more ease in your day and what you're doing and who you're talking to when you have those feelings, that's going to guide you in the direction of where you're meant to go. And likewise, you can also stop and feel those feelings of resistance throughout the day, or those small irritations, and who you're talking to and what you're doing, and really just kind of tune in and pay attention, because that you're guiding yourself, right? Your body is guiding you. You just need to stop and listen. But I think realizing that it will be work no matter what you're doing, good or bad, alignment or not, it's going to be work. And so you might as well put the work into doing something that's going to be fulfilling for you.
Right. So, the before Jill, and then the before Jill, and then the current Jill, right? Um, because there's no after, right? All we have is now,
Yeah.
so there's no
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
What advice does the current Jill have that she would give the before Jill?
Oh God, just to let things go. I mean, the things that we worry about when we're young, the expectations from others that we think we need to fulfill. I think my biggest piece of advice to my former self would be to just be okay with who you are, but also accept others the way that they are. Like, don't try to change people. You can, the two big pieces in that are focus on yourself, but be accepting of others. And not that I wasn't, I've always been a very sort of empathetic, inclusive soul, but it's that piece on recognizing your own independence or your own autonomy in the world, and realizing that no, I can do things the way I want. I don't have to do it the way my teacher told me, or that my parents expected me, or that society says is right, But also, then, if you can recognize that within yourself and really believe that, you need to give others the same respect that they're walking their path, and that's okay too, you
For
know?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, that the statement that how someone else treats us says more about them than it does about us. As we reverse that, how we treat others has a lot to say about who we are.
Absolutely.
But sometimes that message can get misconstrued. Certain things can be misunderstood, but absolutely allowing. And I think once we can create that space and grace for ourselves, it's easier to create that for other people. And I really believe that the majority of our struggles are with ourselves. They're not with other people.
You're so right. And I think it's all our mindset on how we interpret ourselves, our situation, our opportunities, and our limits. And we have control of that. And that's what I think is my biggest message to the moms that I work with is like, girl, you have the wheel, like you are in the driver's seat here and you can make changes, good or bad, and you can make impact and you can have influence. And the choices that you make, the way that you talk to yourself, the way that you talk to your children, the way that you show up at your job, all of those are like votes for the person that you're going to be, right? They're votes cast towards the life that you're going to have. And enough votes cast in one direction is really, that's where you're going. So take the wheel and figure out in each and every moment, like be intentional about how you're treating yourself, how you're treating others, what you're saying internally. What are those stories that are telling yourselves that are really shaping what's happening in your world? Because that all comes to fruition, right?
Right.
Yeah, like if we're not treating ourselves as worthy and lovable and deserving and all of those things, then of course we're not going to be having the fruits of our labor that we, the abundance we want and the love that we want and the life that we want, because we haven't told ourselves that we deserve it. We don't believe that.
Right. For sure. Yeah. Whatever you tell yourself, you're freaking right. You're going to get it. So,
Yeah, whether you think you can or you can't. I mean, you're right.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And what you think about, you will bring about one way
Oh
or
my
the other.
gosh, it's so true.
Might as
Yeah,
well think of something good.
we don't realize
So,
the power.
for right, really. So, when it comes to being in alignment and motherhood, what did the current Jill have to shift from the before Jill after the diagnosis of your son's, you know, different set of needs?
Yeah, I had to trust myself. I had to realize that the answers were already in me, not in a book somewhere. Right. And that was huge. And I realized like nobody knows this kid better than I do. And there's a textbook out there that can tell me what most autistic kids or some autistic kids, because this is the spectrum. Listen, I mean, it's crazy how different of an experience each person can have with the same sort of diagnosis or
Right.
title or label or whatever, right? And it's so different the way that it presents in each person and can change too. And so when I started to trust that I knew what was best for my son and that I um, gravitated towards styles of parenting that felt in alignment with me, that I was like, this makes sense. It's not the norm. It's not what my parents would tell me to do, but I like this and I'm going to try this, and trusting that it would be okay. As soon as you start seeing the reactions and the connections that you can make, if they're coming from your soul and you're trusting yourself and you're trusting the relationship, I mean, for me, that was everything. And it put me on such an amazing path. And the connection I have with my son is just beyond, and it's not perfect every day, of course, just like with my daughter, it's not perfect every day, but trusting that I have a sense of what's best for them and what's best for me and what's best for the family dynamic has been truthfully huge, especially during this time of separation where there's so much change for them. Being able to manage that and navigate in a way that makes sense for them, it's everything.
Mm, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I hear the little pitter patter
Oh
of
my
his
gosh, sorry. Just like, I want to go out, mom. Come here. Mother.
He's being so good though. He's being so good.
He's being good.
Um, so how do you nourish yourself? Because it seems like you have a lot going on, right?
I have
Like,
a lot going on. Oh my
yes.
gosh, yes, I do. But and it's a work in progress. Like there was a gestation period of like this self-care, and in terms of how long it took me to really get into a routine. And it's not a routine, but I always make sure that I'm doing something in the day for myself. So whether that is practicing gratitude to get myself in like this state of just love, or meditating, if it's going for a walk, if sometimes it's eating a bag of chips, and that's the way that I love myself today because that is what I want, and but just taking at least one opportunity every day to listen to what I need and what I want. Maybe it's, phoning a friend or watching a TV show when I should be working on my business, or and not feeling guilty. That's the biggest piece for me. And that's how I nourish myself is I do not engage in guilt. I just don't. And another thing I think that's really helpful for me that I wouldn't necessarily classify as like a self-care, but it nourishes me is that I don't bother about other people's opinions. I've been able to let that go. I really just, not that I don't care, but I don't internalize it. You know what I'm saying? I found quite a nice balance in terms of being able uh, to keep the relationships that are important to me and to keep the advice and the back and forth that goes along with that and the opinions and all of that, and not put up a roadblock against anybody or a wall, but also really being conscious of what I'm allowing to come in, what I'm receiving. And so that's been really nourishing for my soul because I'm not taking on all the negativity or the stories or the judgments of anyone in my life, but I'm still allowing them to present that, and have that communication, that open communication between us without it affecting me.
How do you do that? Because I mean, we could save the world if we could just put that in a bottle, right? So, what's
Right.
your process?
I mean, I should really think about this because it's a skill that I kind of developed first thing was I realized I didn't have to care. No. The first thing was I realized not everyone's going to like me. And I realized that pretty young, but I still am a big people pleaser and I wanted everyone to like me. And so I was like, not everyone likes me. Wait a minute, I can fix that. And so I really tried hard to be overwhelmingly kind and nice and generous and of service. And I was like, wait a minute, people still don't like me. Like, not people, everybody, but like there are people
Yeah,
who
people
I'm not their
exist.
cup of tea, and that's cool, right? Maybe some people don't like nice people, but I'm a nice person, so they don't like me, right? So I think that was the first piece, realizing that no matter what you do, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And then the second piece of like aha moment that came for me was realizing you don't have to, like, other people's opinions are really none of your business. You don't have to listen or care about that. And it took a long time for me to really internalize that. And I thought about it a lot. And I would put it into practice every time I heard an opinion. I'd be like, wait a minute, do I have to listen to that? Is that important? And so it was just practice. And then one thing is that, especially as like an empathetic person, that I need to do is sort of put a bit of a bubble over myself. If I'm in a situation where there's a lot of energetic feeling, where there's a lot of emotions happening. I actually was working for a short time at our hospital in the emergency room during COVID. And so I found it like I really needed to go in and have this sort of imaginary bubble over me where I can see and they can see me and they can see that I care. Sorry about the dog. But then it doesn't permeate the bubble. You know what I mean? Like I can be there and I can be in it and I can experience life with whatever's happening, but it doesn't have to come into me. I don't have to take that on as their emotions and their energies. It doesn't have to come in. So I kind of think of it like that. Yeah, it's kind of the best I can describe it.
That's cool. That's awesome. I think that that could be very helpful for people. I am extremely porous, so I take in a lot of things even though I don't want to.
Yes, try the
And
bubble. Put it on. Just as big old bubble.
yeah, it works. It works definitely on an energetic level, but sometimes I can't unhear words. So
I
I have to
know.
really process them. So for me, it's journaling for sure. And I surprise myself sometime when I journal. I'm like, oh, I didn't know I felt that way.
Right? I know it just flows out and it's like your inner voice just talking to you through you. It's the best. I love journaling too. And something about pen to paper, right?
I know, like I feel all like retro.
I'm a big paper girl. Like I have a paper planner. I don't use the iCalendar. Like I read books. I don't do like anything e-booky. I don't know. I'm an old fashioned that way. I love that paper. It's
That's
helpful.
interesting. There are a few books that I like to have in my hand, and a few books that I want to make sure I keep a physical copy of. Not many at all, but it is very cathartic to sit and actually old school write something out and then go back the next day and not be able to read it because
Right.
my handwriting's horrible.
That happened to me the other day. You'll laugh. I was doing this. I'm going to get super woo woo on you for a sec, but I was doing this channeling of my spirit guide, my spirit animal guide.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
It's something that I've been exploring. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I've been hearing more about this. If I hear about something a bunch of times, I'm like, I'm going to look into that because it keeps coming at me. Right.
Right.
So I went online and I found this like YouTube guided meditation to meet your spirit animal and whatever. So, anyways, I did this and I met my spirit animal and I'm like journaling afterward, like crazy about like all the things. And I'm looking back a week later to look at it. No idea. I'm like, oh, this gibberish. It's chicken scratch. I can't read this. It was wild because it was just flowing, right? It's a zebra, by the way. I would have never
Oh,
thought zebra would be
wow.
a spirit animal. But, and then the other day, okay, woo woo again. If any of my friends are going to watch this, they're going to be like, who are you? Because they don't really, I haven't developed this. Anyways, I was reading my tarot cards before work one day and the zebra came up as one of the cards. I was like, wow, okay.
Oh,
It was neat,
that's pretty cool.
right?
But
Kind of
yeah,
crazy.
I can totally relate with the not being able to understand the writing the next day. But it's like you don't have to as long as it got out, you know?
Yeah,
As long as
absolutely.
it gets out. Man, I did I have to always prepare because I'm constantly in my open head, right? So I wrote like one page the other day and then I went on about my day and I realized I'm not ruminating anymore about that. And I'm like, I thought I needed to write a lot more. And I wrote some really mean things. They just needed to come out, you know?
Mhm.
Um, like you said, life is work and these relationships are work and these family dynamics are work and all this stuff. So gotta get that stress out, get that energy out some kind of way.
Out is better than in. Like, get it out there.
For sure, for sure. So, as we close, I definitely want you to share where we can find you to get coaching if we want to connect with you that way. But I also want to just ask you, like, what are some concrete tips for people that are coming out of this pandemic? Their life has shifted because life kept going. Life was just as intense during the pandemic, on top of the pandemic, in addition to the pandemic, right? So when we talk about living in alignment, tell us what that means. And then also tell us what your concrete tips are as we move through this weird, like, should I wear my mask? Do we still need to wear a mask? Are we safe? Is everything okay? Did we really come out of this? I'm scared. I want to start a family. Maybe I don't want to start a family. Like, how do we connect with that?
There's a lot going on for people right now, right? And there's so much up in the air. There's a lot of opportunities, which brings a lot of indecision. And I think the best way to get clear on if something's right for you and in alignment for you or not is really coming back to sitting quietly with yourself. It doesn't have to be for a long time. It doesn't need to be a 4 hour meditation, but if you can take 5 or 10 minutes out of your day, it can even be in the shower. Like it doesn't have to take extra time. Like do it while you're doing something else. But if you can concentrate and just sort of just quiet your mind, focus on your breathing, and it will serve you well as you do this practice sort of every day, that eventually during that time, you're going to be able to just release and relax quicker. And then you'll be able to start to feel what's right for you. Right. So paying attention, not only in this sort of 5 or 10 minute intentional reflective time that you're taking for yourself, but also throughout the day and paying attention to, because you know what's in alignment. Like if you stop and you know, like, you know, we know when something's not right for us. We know when something's a bad decision. But if we're really stuck in that indecision, sit with it and sit with it and ask, just ask out loud, like ask yourself out loud, like, is this a yes or a no?
Right.
You know? And if you don't get a clear answer right away, that's fine. Ask again tomorrow. And I think releasing the pressure on ourselves to make decisions right away is going to be huge. There's no urgency. If we've seen anything over the past 2 years, it's that life can go at a slower pace and that's okay, you know?
Mm.
But I think just really honoring what feels right for you, not questioning it. Like if it feels right or if it feels wrong and you get that gut, just listen to that. We all have a lot more intuition than we think we do. There's a reason that people have these expressions like follow your heart, trust your gut, like it's your body telling you. And this is something new that I'm learning how to tune into, but I think it's really powerful because the answers really are within you. And we always know.
Yeah.
So that's my best advice. In terms of like really tactical things to do, taking that time, try and do it every day. It can be your self-care routine, just to sit quietly with yourself, asking is this a yes or is this a no? And I think you hit it like nail on the head with journaling, because you can find out a lot of stuff that you didn't know by putting pen to paper,
For sure.
right? And so if you're not sure, you can even start out by writing like, is this a yes or a no? And like, or I'm curious about, or I'm worried about, or I'm unsure about, use that as like your first sentence or a journaling prompt, as they would call it, right?
Hmm.
Just see what comes out and just set a timer and make sure you sit there for 5 or 10 minutes, because something, you might sit there and have nothing. Don't put the pen away, like sit there and just wait, because something will come, you know?
Yeah, it sure will.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. So, where do we find you online?
So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not cool enough for TikTok yet, but I'm Grow Like a Mother on both. And also, if you're interested in listening to another podcast, I have a podcast called Grow Like a Mother as well. Those are the three best ways, definitely.
Awesome. Grow like a mother. I love
Yeah.
that.
Kind of sassy, but it's real.
For
Yeah.
real. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
It's been my honor. Thank you.
Awesome. You're